The whole agenda is to create a one world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is getting me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything.
you sell.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips.
Hello everybody, it's no master above, no slave below. First part of this video was Aaron Russo telling us what is going to happen. Now he became close friends with Nick Rockefeller, and he's describing to Alex Jones. A lot of you out there don't like Alex. I don't like Alex anymore either, but Alex did wake me up. And I think Alex plays a part in all of this, because all the stuff that's being exposed right now, even though we all know he's been co-opted and he works for Time Warner or whoever he works for, this stuff needs to be put out. And what happens is they don't care anymore. They're putting this stuff out in our face, and they're trying to provoke us. Now, this next clip is going to be from a hit TV series, and I can't think of the name of it, but I'm sure you're going to recognize this guy. He's got a partner, and they do a lot of research into, supposed theories and myths and things like that, but he's going to come out and say some very, very profound things about the RFID chip. They planned on doing a show on it, and guess what? They got cut off. They're not going to let them do this show. This show is probably too popular, and for whatever reason, they're not going to put this information out at this time. Now, I'm going to stop this, and we'll play this clip from this guy from this popular series. Can't think of the name of it for some reason right now.
And the head producer over there for the other team, Linda Wolkovich, and one of the technicians at Texas Instruments. We're supposed to have a conference called Talk About the Technology on like Tuesday at 10 a.m. And Tuesday at 10 a.m., Linda and Tori get on the phone, and Texas Instruments comes on, along with Chief Legal Counsel for American Express, Visa, Discover, and everybody else. I mean, and I got chills just as I described it. They were way, way outgunned, and they absolutely made it really clear to Discovery that they were not going to air this episode talking about how hackable this stuff was, and Discovery backed way down, being a large corporation who depends upon the revenue of the advertisers. And now it's on Discovery's radar. They won't let us go near it. So I'm sorry.
No.
We are. It's just one of those things. But man, that was a really. Story still gets a little white when he describes that phone conversation.
Okay. This is No Master Above, No Slave Below. Back. Mythbusters is the show. I had a brain fart, couldn't think of it, but yet I was saying myth and debunking and all the other stuff that I was describing. But this was the video I intended to do, but I figured I'd start out with the clip from Aaron Russo, and then the other one I happened to find. And like I said, that's from Mythbusters, and I actually meant to put in a little bit of the first part of that video where he actually talks about RFID chip, but that's what he's talking about. They planned on doing a show on that, but they found out through the powers that be, the corporations, and Discovery, one of the corporations they work for, was not going to have it. But I think you heard him say that they're hackable. Now everything is hackable these days. Cars. I just did a video recently on Michael Hastings, the NDAA, and the rabbit hole. But this article is from Tyler Durden. So it begins. Bloomberg op-ed calls for an end of cash. In a moment of curious serendipity, a little over 90 minutes after we showed what a dystopian, centrally planned, cashless society unleashed in a negative interest rate world would look like by forcing people and companies to convert their paper money into bank deposits, the hope is that they can be persuaded, coerced, to spend that money rather than save it, because those deposits will carry considerable costs. What they're saying is, when you put your money in the bank, if you don't spend it, guess what? It's going to cost you money to keep it there. Now, back in the day, you used to actually put money in the bank and they'd give you interest on it. You know, as long as you had a certain amount in there, you'd accrue interest, you know, quarterly or whatever. And briefly, after we laid out the countless recent warnings from very serious people that cash is evil and should be banned, now he cites a couple things here. Norway's biggest bank demands cash ban. Now, I just did a video on that probably 3 or 4 videos ago. And there's a term called the canary in the coal mine. They usually start somewhere. They have to start with something, and they see how it goes. And then eventually it becomes, you know, they're going to do it all over the place, but they start somewhere and they see if there's a major backlash to it. And now the next thing here is Bank of England economist calls for cash ban, urges negative rates. Citigroup gold expert demands a cash ban. Leading German Keynesian economist, I know I botched that. I know how to pronounce it, I just can't at the moment, for cash ban. While warning to wait a full-on co-opted media assault about the dangers of cash, and what the dangers of cash is they can't track cash. When you have cash in your pocket and you go to spend it at a store, they can't track it. I mean, there is supposedly a strip in there where they have a device that can tell how much money you have on you just by like scanning it, or so I've been led to believe, and I kind of believe it. But the strip that was in the 20s that came out years and years ago. But anyway, all right, which is anachronism from a bygone era. And the world will be so much better if only everyone dutifully exchanges the physical currency in their pocket for digital, traceable, and deletable ones and zeros on the computer. None other than Bloomberg issued an editorial op-ed in which he had one simple message: bring on a cashless future. For those who are amused by our warning that a cashless world may be coming, here is precisely why the warning was issued in Bloomberg's Digital Inc. I guess this is part of the article here. All right. It says, bring on the cashless future. Cash has had a pretty good run for 4,000 years or so. These days, though, notes and coins increasingly seem declass. They're dirty, dangerous, unwieldy, expensive, and antiquated, and so very analog. Sensing this dissatisfaction, entrepreneurs have introduced hundreds of digital currencies in the past few years, of which Bitcoin is only the most famous. Now governments want in. People's Bank of China says it intends to issue digital currency of its own. Central banks in Ecuador, the Philippines, the UK, Canada are mulling similar ideas. At least one company has sprung up to help them along. Much depends on the details, of course, but this is a welcome trend. In theory, digital legal tender could combine the innovateness of private virtual currencies with the stability of government mint. Most obviously, such a system would make moving money easier. Properly designed, the digital fiat currency and could move seamlessly across otherwise incompatible payment networks, making transactions faster and cheaper. It would be of particular use to the poor, who could pay bills or accept payments online without the need of a bank account or make remittances without getting gouged. For governments and taxpayers, potential advantages abound. Issuing digital currency would be cheaper than printing bills and minting coins. It can improve the statistical indicators such as inflation and gross domestic product. traceable transactions could help inhibit terrorist financing and money laundering, fraud, tax evasion, and corruption. Yeah, right. The most far-reaching effect might be on monetary policy. For much of the past decade, the central banks in the rich world would have been hampered by the economists call the zero lower bound, or the inability to impose significantly negative interest rates. Persistent low demand and high unemployment may sometimes require interest rates to be pushed below zero. But why keep money in a deposit whose value keeps shrinking when you can hold cash instead? With rates near zero, the conundrum has led to policymakers to novel and unpredictable methods of stimulating the economy, such as large-scale bond buying. A digital legal tender could resolve this problem. Suppose the central bank charged the banks that deal with it a fee for accepting paper currency. In that way, it could set an exchange rate between electronic and paper money. And by raising the fee, it would cause paper money to depreciate against the electronic standard. This would eliminate the incentive to hold cash rather than digital money, allowing the central bank to push the interest rate below zero and thereby boost consumption and investment. It would be a big step towards doing without cash altogether. Digital legal tender isn't without risk. A policy that drives down the value of paper money would meet political resistance, to put it mildly, would require some explaining. It could hold back private innovations in digital currencies. Security will be an abiding concern. Non-cash payments also tend to exacerbate the human propensity to overspend. And you don't have to be paranoid to worry about Big Brother tracking your financial life. Governments must be alert to these problems, because the key to getting people to adopt such a system is trust. A rule that a person's transaction history could be accessed only by the court order, for instance, might alleviate privacy concerns. Harmonizing international regulations could encourage companies to keep experimenting, and an effective campaign to explain the new tender would be indispensable. If policymakers are wise and attend to all that, they just might convince the public of a surprising truth about cash. They would be better off without it. To contact the senior editor responsible for Bloomberg's Views editorials, David Shipley at davidshipley@bloomberg.net. And so it begins. It will most certainly not end there. Now, to bring this video all together, what I'm basically stating and what this article is stating and what Aaron Russo stated and what the Mythbusters guy stated was that we are on the verge of having a cashless society. Now, if you aren't able to have cash, if they will not allow you to hold cash and everything is zeros and ones in a computer, whether it be digital, Bitcoin, or what have you, we are now going to be controlled and monitored in every way possible. Now, they already monitor everything we do electronically. There's nothing you can do on any of your devices unless you're some mastermind who has encrypted something, and I think they have supercomputers that will decrypt anything at this point. I think the technology that they let on that they have right now is like not even close to what they actually have. There's so much that's being hidden from us. Occult stuff. Now, occult doesn't mean bad. Occult just means hidden. And basically, most of our history is occult. I hope this day never comes. I know it's pretty much inevitable. Hopefully, there'll be a huge backlash against a cashless society. I know years ago there were people putting out videos saying that if you use cash, you are on the radar to possibly be being a terrorist. Now, back in the day, I used to take a certain amount out of the bank where I knew whatever purchases I needed to make in cash, hopefully I took it out once because the fee itself was like $3.50 per transaction. Now, I didn't have like a real bank account back then. I just used like a one of my cards that I got my refunds on. Now, like I said, I was pretty smart about it. I only took cash out once a week, and then I used my debit card for whatever purchases I could use, but there were certain things, and we all kind of know what I'm talking about, that you got to pay for in cash. Eventually, that stuff, there's people out there right now that are doing that type of thing, and they're somehow doing it through the system. They're using the system, but eventually they're going to be tracked for it. But they're probably small enough or they're not really on the radar. But this is very important. I mean, every credit card that's coming out now, all the new credit cards have a chip in them. Just like your phone has a chip in it. Basically, you don't have an RFID chip in you yet, but basically if you have a cell phone, they're tracking you everywhere you go. There is a thing called Block It Pocket out there. I don't know how, I mean, it's described as being blocking your signal, so, you know, if you don't want your movements tracked while you carry your cell phone, you know, Block It Pocket, I guess, if it works, would be a decent investment. But as things get further and further towards them fulfilling their New World agenda, all this stuff is coming out. They can't hide it, and I think they're putting a lot of stuff in our face. Like I said, the X-Files or the X-Files episode that just came out, the new X-Files series just started up. That basically threw right in our face what they're going to do. And like I mentioned this in one of my last videos, is that, well, when you try to wake somebody up and say, hey, watch this, they're like, oh, that's just TV, that's just a movie. It's not. It's they're conditioning you. It's all TV and you know, movies. They're all conditioning you. They first need to introduce an idea into your head, even if you don't agree with it, even if you vehemently think, oh, this is wrong. Guess what? It's now in your consciousness. You when it comes to fruition, you know, it's not such a shock. It's not like they did it overnight and then all of a sudden, wow, this stuff happened. No, they kind of gradually led you to believe that this might happen, even though you thought, well, this will never happen. This is just a movie. It's a TV show. They first need to introduce something. They need to put it out there. And like I said, I think there's a lot of good alternative media out there. I think there's a lot of alternative media out there that has been, you know, co-opted or infiltrated or whatever. I don't know. Maybe Alex Jones, when he first started out, had everybody's best interest at heart. I tend to believe that I think he puts out a lot of decent information, but, you know, maybe they're putting it out there, and if he's controlled, maybe they're putting it out there because they want this out there. Sort of like the WDBJ shooting. That was a live event that got aired. It got aired for a reason. Now there's a delay. There's a delay in all of, you know, any kind of television, you know, for swearing or what have you, in case something crazy happens. Now, why would they air something like that on TV? They aired it because they wanted you to see it. Now, I think that was a total bullshit fake shooting. I think, you know, I really don't exactly know everything about it, but I'm pretty sure that there were, you know, blanks in that gun, because I've seen the videos where, you know, if you fire a firearm and it's an actual real weapon and not a prop, you know, shells come out. Shells come out, that they eject, and no shells came out. But this video is going to end. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. Take care, everybody.